On a sunny day on June 4th, 2019, in a Cleveland, Ohio park, a local couple were about to go kayaking when they came across a shocking scene. A man was lying on the grass, motionless, next to a park bench that overlooked the river that flowed through the park. On the bank of the river, about 6 feet in front of him, was a woman, lying still with her face in the water. Both had been shot in the head. These people were lifelong friends, but with no enemies. Who would want them dead? At Rocky Reservation Park in Cleveland, Ohio, Kate Brown met up with her friend Carnell Sledge. They had known each other for 10 years, and though their friendship ebbed and flowed, they always came back to each other, though they were not romantically involved. Kate was a fun-loving, goofy woman known for her bright spirit despite her ongoing battle with anxiety and depression. She had turned her life around, getting sober after struggling with alcohol. A marketing professional, she was passionate about her work and was beginning to re-enter the dating scene. Her life was full of ups and downs, but no one could imagine that it would end so tragically. Nell, known to his family and friends as a gentle giant, was a man with a big heart. He spent much of his free time coaching basketball for children with disabilities and was known for his unwavering dedication to his family. While his connection with Kate was deep, it remained platonic, though many speculated about whether his feelings ran deeper. Kate's sister recalled the time when Nell had said to Kate, "When are we going to end up together?" She speculated that Nell may have wanted to meet Kate to tell her about his feelings, but it doesn't seem like the type of thing to rush. The park was an unlikely setting for a murder, a tranquil spot with open fields, winding trails, and a serene riverbank. It was here, just steps away from a busy parking lot, that Kate and Nell were found, both shot in cold blood. No gun was recovered at the scene, and the placement of the shell casings indicated the killer was close to their victims. The discovery would lead police on a desperate hunt for answers, but none would come easily. On the day of the murders, Kate and Nell's last hours seemed ordinary, yet something significant must have happened to draw them both to the park, something that neither would live to tell. Surveillance footage, phone records, and witness statements helped piece together their final moments. At 3:38 p.m., Kate arrives home from work and heads to the gym at her apartment complex, swiping in at exactly 3:38 p.m. At 4:02 p.m., Nell sends Kate a message asking if she wants to meet up, though the urgency of his request remains unclear. At 4:10 p.m., while still at the gym, Kate calls Nell. Their conversation lasts 10 minutes. At 4:24 p.m., Nell leaves work. He had a family dinner scheduled at his grandmother's house for 5 p.m., but the park was in the opposite direction, suggesting that meeting Kate was an urgent priority. At 4:31 p.m., Kate finishes her workout and leaves the gym. Both she and Nell are now heading towards the park. At 5:01 p.m., a parked police cruiser's camera captures Kate's car arriving at the park. Just 2 minutes later, Nell's car is also spotted pulling into the car park. They park and walk towards a secluded bench by the riverbank. At 5:08 p.m., Kate unlocks her phone and checks her messages, the last recorded interaction on her phone. At 5:22 p.m., a 911 call is made, reporting the 2 bodies found at the park. That leaves just 14 minutes for Kate and Nell to have been shot and their bodies discovered. The short time window leaves so many questions. Why did they meet so quickly? Did Kate's distress, possibly related to an ex, prompt the sudden meeting? Nell had a family dinner at 5 p.m. at his grandmother's house, about 30 minutes away. By meeting Kate at the park, he was going to be late. According to one of his friends, his grandma was his top priority. She was the most important person in his life. Yet he was willing to be at least 30 minutes late and didn't call her to tell her. Whatever it was that prompted the meetup, it must have been urgent and important. As the investigation unfolded, theories of a crime of passion, a targeted killing, or even a random act of violence circulated. The tight timeline points to the possibility that they were followed. But by whom? Nell had an ex-girlfriend, Alyssa Miller, whom he had dated for about 6 months and broken up with a few months before the murder. But the pair had rekindled their romance in the weeks leading up to his death. They had spent time together the weekend before and had texted each other on the day of the murder. At 1:19 p.m., Alyssa sent Nell a message that hinted at emotional turmoil. It read, "Had a not-so-fun emotional moment last night. Whatever had happened seemed to weigh on her." But it wasn't until 3:16 p.m. that Nell responded. He said, "What happened last night?" However, Alyssa didn't reply immediately. In fact, it wasn't until much later, at 9:18 p.m, that she finally answered. She stated, "All in the past." But by then it was too late. Nell had been murdered hours earlier, and he never got a chance to respond. Alyssa, unaware of his tragic fate, discovered the news the following day through a Facebook post. In the immediate aftermath of the murders, Alyssa was one of the first people police investigated. She had a permit for open carry, and her firearm naturally became a subject of interest. However, after thoroughly examining her alibi, the authorities cleared her, and her weapon was found to not be the one used in the crime. Despite this, there were lingering concerns. Alyssa admitted she didn't know much about Kate or her friendship with Nell. She had never imagined Nell, someone she described as too gentle and kind-hearted, being involved in something that could end in such violence. She said that no one would want to hurt him. Nell's family shared the same feeling. To them, it seemed more likely that someone connected to Kate had been involved. The mystery only deepened as more questions arose about why they had been killed together at that time and in such a peaceful setting. Furthermore, Kate's family knew all about Nell and their friendship, but Nell's family didn't know about Kate, even though they had been friends for 10 years. So was the killer someone connected to Kate? In the weeks leading up to her death, Kate had started dating after a period of being single. She had been on a disturbing Tinder date with a man who had a dark criminal past. Kate felt something was off about him, and her feeling was confirmed when he admitted to her that he had killed someone a decade earlier. He and his brother had stabbed a man and set his body on fire. This information shook Kate, and she never saw him again. But if he had already killed someone, then it's possible he could do it again. However, the police looked into this man and found that his alibi placed him far away from the park. But there was someone else that Kate was romantically involved with. One of the most troubling figures in Kate's life was an ex-boyfriend, who she had dated for about a year to a year and a half. Their relationship had ended badly, and he didn't take the breakup well. He was reportedly abusive and violent towards her, something that haunted Kate even after they broke up. But despite this, she continued to see him in secret, long after their official split. The night before Kate was killed, this ex had been with her at her apartment. According to a witness, Kate appeared emotional while on the phone with Nell that afternoon while she was at the gym. So was she in distress over something her ex had done? Did she end it with him for good? Perhaps she reached out to Nell for support. It seemed plausible that Nell, being the caring friend he was, had offered to meet up immediately to get her help through a difficult moment. Perhaps that's why their meeting appeared so urgent. Kate hadn't showered after her gym session, and Nell had a family dinner he was supposed to attend, so they clearly didn't intend to meet for very long. It's speculated that Nell offered to see Kate in person during a time of her distress, so that she didn't turn to drinking. She was sober after all. Surveillance cameras captured footage of the ex coming and going from Kate's apartment the night before the murder. There were questions about whether he had shown up again the next day and possibly followed her after she left the gym. However, police later determined that he had been at a barber shop at the time of the murder, and that ruled him out as a suspect. But we don't know if they have video evidence of his alibi, or simply his name in an appointment book or a receipt. We do not know the extent to which they cleared him. Kate's family was uneasy. They even confronted him in person after the murder and explicitly told him not to attend her funeral. Their visit seemed more about intimidation than conversation. They were deeply suspicious of him. Allegedly, during this tense visit, they noticed a gun lying on a table in his home, which only added to their concerns. Yet the idea that he might have followed Kate and Nell to the park didn't seem to hold up. If he had trailed them, surely his car would have also been seen on the same surveillance cameras that had recorded both Kate and Nell's cars heading towards the park. One of the most puzzling aspects of the case was the presence of a man who worked for a roofing company parked in his truck just steps away from where Kate and Nell were brutally murdered. The roofer quickly became a key focus in the investigation due to his proximity to the crime scene. According to reports, he was parked in the lot adjacent to the bench where Kate and Nell were found, and was completing paperwork inside his truck at the time of the murder. Despite being so close, the roofer claimed he neither saw nor heard anything suspicious. His truck was positioned in such a way that he would have been able to see where Kate and Nell sat, though there was a canopy of trees blocking part of the view. No unusual activity caught his attention, no sudden gunfire or screams alerted him to the tragedy. He only noticed a commotion when the kayakers arrived and found the bodies. Given his proximity to the crime scene, police initially scrutinized him as a potential suspect. They searched his truck, seized his phone and data, and analyzed his movements before, during, and after the time of the murders. The idea that someone could have committed such a violent act so close to his location without him noticing seemed improbable. His phone records were closely examined, but nothing suspicious was found. The police managed to confirm that the roofer had been doing paperwork in his truck during the time. This led to him being ruled out as a direct suspect. However, his presence still raises questions. Is it really possible he didn't see or hear anything? Was he the killer? The murder would have happened quick enough that it might appear he was still active online. Some have speculated that the roofer's escape could have been interrupted by the sudden appearance of kayakers who stumbled upon the scene shortly after the murders. A quick getaway would have looked suspicious once they arrived. But with no gun found in his truck, the roofer's involvement does seem unlikely. But perhaps he threw the gun in the river. We don't know whether the police searched the river or not. The theory that the murders were a crime of passion is intriguing. Crimes of passion are typically spontaneous, driven by intense emotions like jealousy, love, or rage. In this case, the quick turnaround, Kate and Nell were murdered just minutes after arriving at the park. It suggests the killer could have acted out of overwhelming emotion. Could one of their ex-partners have followed them? Both Kate and Nell had complex past relationships. Kate's ex-boyfriend was known to harbour intense feelings for her, even after their breakup. He was possessive and had a history of violence, making him a potential suspect in a crime driven by jealousy or anger. The fact that he had been with Kate just the night before adds another layer of suspicion. Did he follow her to the park the next day after stalking her? But surely his car would have also been seen by the police cruiser, and police did check out his alibi. Similarly, Nell's recent interactions with his ex, Alyssa Miller, raised red flags for some. They had been romantically involved before, and while they decided to remain friends, their relationship was described as complicated. Alyssa's emotional response at his funeral was considered unusual by some attendees, further fueling the speculation that perhaps she was overcompensating because she had something to do with his death. And according to Alyssa, she did not know of Nell's friendship with Kate. Perhaps she found out that day. She did not reply to Nell's message that afternoon until the evening, so what was she doing during this time? But again, police checked out her alibi and cleared her. If this was indeed a crime of passion, it would suggest that either Kate or Nell, or perhaps both, were the intended targets. But why? What could have happened between these friends to trigger such a violent outburst from someone in their lives? Another disturbing theory is that this was a random act of violence. The secluded bench where Kate and Nell were sitting was somewhat hidden from the busier areas of the park. Could they have been in the wrong place at the wrong time? Random killings in public places are rare, but not impossible. The relatively quick nature of the crime, just 14 minutes between their last known phone activity and the time of the 911 call, suggests that the killer acted decisively. There was no robbery motive, as both victims' belongings and electronics in their cars were left untouched. Given that Cleveland's Metropark system is a popular spot for outdoor enthusiasts, it's not hard to imagine a chance encounter escalating into violence. Was this an act of aggression by a stranger, perhaps someone who had seen Kate and Nell together and assumed they were a couple? Investigators have not ruled out the possibility that it could have been gang-related, perhaps as part of an initiation ritual. But with no evidence of gang affiliation or criminal involvement from either victim, the random act theory remains a mystery. The final and most unsettling theory is that a third party may have been following Kate and Nell. There is the possibility that someone could have overheard Kate's phone conversation with Nell while she was at the gym. She had been on the phone with him for 10 minutes before leaving to meet up, which may have given a potential stalker or opportunist enough time to plan their next move. Kate had recently begun using Tinder, which exposed her to new people, some of whom were not always trustworthy. One man she met through the app had a violent criminal history, having killed someone in a particularly brutal way years earlier. While police were able to confirm he had an alibi and was far away in southern Ohio at the time, the incident points to the fact that Kate's life had begun to intersect with dangerous individuals. It raises the question, could someone she met recently, either through Tinder or otherwise, have followed her and decided to strike at this vulnerable moment? The theory that someone followed Kate after she left the gym remains one of the most plausible, particularly since the murder took place in such a short window of time. Whoever committed this crime had likely been trailing them, waiting for the right moment to strike. But who was it? But surely if someone did follow them to the park that day, they would have been seen on video by the police cruiser or other cameras near the entrance to the park. So it really does remain a mystery. Despite the best efforts of investigators, no one has come forward with any significant information. A $100,000 reward remains on the table, but the case grows colder by the day. The murder of Kate and Nell leaves behind more questions than answers, and as the investigation continues, the hope for justice persists. Until then, their families and loved ones are left with painful memories and the need for closure.